In this podcast episode, Tim Ferriss returns after nearly a decade to discuss a vast array of topics centered around personal development, health optimization, and the philosophy of living a meaningful life. Throughout the conversation, Tim shares insights into cutting-edge bioelectric medicine, brain fuel alternatives, habit formation, the delicate balance between achievement and acceptance, relationship dynamics, technology's impact on mental health, and the power of focus. The discussion also touches upon practical strategies for habit building, the value of asking the right questions, and how fostering genuine human connections can alter life's trajectory. Tim begins by exploring recent advances in cognitive enhancement, focusing on alternative fuel sources for the brain, such as ketones and lactate. He highlights Alzheimer's disease as a form of type 3 diabetes, where impaired glucose utilization in the brain suggests that boosting ketone availability can restore cognitive function temporarily. These exogenous ketones can improve speech and mental clarity in as little as 20 minutes. Furthermore, Tim shares research on lactate produced during high-intensity interval training, such as the Norwegian 4x4 protocol, which stimulates brain regions responsible for memory and cognition. The lactate acts not only as fuel, but also as a signaling molecule, promoting neuroplasticity. Moving beyond nutrition, Tim delves into the emerging field of bioelectric medicine, using electrical stimulation through microchips and devices to modulate neural and immune responses. He recounts his personal experience with accelerated transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, combined with a low-dose antibiotic to treat severe OCD and generalized anxiety disorder, reporting dramatic reductions in symptoms lasting several months after a one-day treatment. This modality offers a promising alternative to pharmaceuticals by targeting specific neural circuits with fewer side effects. He also discusses vagus nerve stimulation, both invasive and non-invasive, as a way to control inflammation and modulate mood disorders. Tim connects these scientific interventions to ancient practices like meditation and breathwork, which can activate the vagus nerve rhythmically, helping regulate the autonomic nervous system. The conversation transitions to the challenges of building new habits and unlocking their benefits. Tim emphasizes the importance of setting realistic expectations up front, particularly for practices like meditation or high-intensity training, which often require consistent effort for weeks or months before benefits manifest. He advocates for starting small, doing less than you think you can manage, to foster longevity and enthusiasm rather than burnout. To sustain new behaviors, Tim suggests commitment devices and social accountability, such as monetary bets or embarrassing consequences to increase adherence. Managing expectations reduces the likelihood of abandonment during inevitable performance plateaus or discomfort phases, framing habit formation as a process rather than an instant fix. Throughout the dialogue, Tim underscores the inseparability of mind and body. He recounts a personal wake-up call when discovering a significant vitamin D deficiency, resulting in low energy, despite a fulfilling life otherwise. This points to the critical role of micronutrients and biological health in enabling cognitive and emotional well-being. He discusses how common nutritional deficiencies, such as low selenium or trace minerals, can impair energy levels and mental state, which often go unrecognized in the pursuit of psychological or intellectual solutions alone. For many, addressing these biological limits through diet, supplementation, or practices like intermittent fasting profoundly improves focus and mood. Having spent much of his life focusing on achievement and improvement, Tim reflects deeply on the complementary role of acceptance, the ability to allow what is, rather than endlessly striving to fix or control. He acknowledges that too much acceptance equates to passivity, while relentless achievement without rest leads to burnout. He introduces a concept from a friend, Josh Waitzkin, called avoiding the simmering six, which means oscillating between periods of full sprint and complete rest, avoiding the middle state of chronic low-level stress that erodes well-being. Tim sees his own life as a series of cycles between intense work on meaningful projects and intentional downtime with loved ones. For Tim, embracing both achievement and acceptance is essential, since we have far less control than we believe, especially when factoring in other humans, and any sustainable approach must honor this tension. Tim offers a candid critique of social media, describing it as a major psychological trap that wastes time, drains energy, and hampers attention. He advocates for removing social media apps from smartphones entirely and setting strict limits on screen use, especially during evenings, to reclaim presence and mental rest. He compares social media addiction to alcoholism or smoking and points out that even successful people can become ensnared, often undermining years of therapeutic progress with habitual doom scrolling. He claims a 2-week digital detox can yield mental health benefits equivalent to a decade of therapy for many individuals. Tim also highlights the paradox of caffeine consumption, explaining how it can perpetuate anxiety and energy crashes by accelerating fuel exhaustion rather than providing true nourishment. He urges people to consider whether their restlessness or inability to focus might be biological issues rather than failures of will. Fostering focus emerges as a central theme. Tim reveals that the top 1% obsess over protecting their attention as a sacred resource, deliberately setting boundaries to eliminate distractions. This includes strict calendar management, filtering communication, and cultivating the courage to say no. He notes that the allure of yes stems from fears of missing out, people-pleasing impulses, and chronic busyness, all of which sabotage productivity and mental health. Tim argues that developing confidence in your ability to generate new opportunities reduces dependency on external validation and diminishes FOMO. He references Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans and the law of category, emphasizing how true success often comes from becoming a category of one with a unique value proposition rather than striving to be the best in a crowded field. Tim shares that emotional experience, once undervalued in his life, has become central to his understanding of what it means to be human. Emotional regulation and acceptance are not liabilities, but vital components of meaningful relationships. He stresses that objective reality is often inaccessible in interpersonal conflicts. Instead, each person's subjective experience is valid. Clinging to winning arguments about facts creates dead ends in conversations. Instead, curiosity and empathy, cultivated through practice and tools such as nonviolent communication, enable deeper connection and resolution. Tim also highlights the importance of signaling readiness for difficult discussions, recognizing when either party is unresourced emotionally or physiologically, for example, after poor sleep or excess caffeine, and postponing conversations accordingly to avoid harm. Returning to broader philosophical themes, Tim asserts that humans need a North Star, or central mission, to avoid languishing in distraction. Without a compelling purpose, people drift toward unfulfilling, reactive patterns, hunting field mice, instead of pursuing the antelope that is truly meaningful. He pushes back against the idea that achievement must equal grandiosity, noting that a kindergarten teacher devoting herself fully to children's well-being exemplifies profound meaning. Purpose is dynamic and can shift over time, but having clear focus and intentionality lends psychological and emotional stability. Tim also invites reflection on subtraction rather than addition. Instead of endlessly chasing new goals, consider what can be removed to reduce friction, regain energy, and enhance focus. Throughout his career and personally, Tim has relied heavily on carefully crafted questions to gain clarity, make decisions, and assess progress. He illustrates the power of "what if I did the opposite?" or "what if I could only subtract?" as mechanisms to break habitual patterns and uncover novel solutions. He advocates cultivating a core set of probing questions to periodically audit one's life, work, and goals. These questions can reveal whether one is chasing ephemeral distractions or aligned with a meaningful big yes. Tim underscores that these questions are tools to avoid fooling oneself and to create space for intentional action rather than reactive living. Tim shares personal anecdotes about how practices from seemingly unrelated domains can illuminate new paths. For example, lessons from archery helped him overcome frustration with meditation by applying principles of focus and patience. Similarly, insights from music, performance coaching, or acro yoga can translate into enhanced skill in creativity, relationships, or productivity. He stresses that mastery often comes from cross-pollinating ideas and that many effective habits and mindsets are universal, regardless of specific activity. He encourages embracing incremental learning and adaptation across domains. Tim acknowledges that relentless self-improvement, driven solely by achievement, can lead to an emotionally toxic state where one always feels broken and insufficient. The absence of acceptance creates a constant chase where peace remains elusive. He cautions that the hyper-individualism of much self-help culture neglects the importance of relationships and community, which ultimately ground and sustain personal growth. Bringing balance between striving and acceptance, between individual optimization and connection, is essential to avoiding burnout and maintaining mental health. For those who feel behind or off track, Tim reassures that it is never too late to start meaningful efforts. He cites numerous examples of individuals doing their most impactful work late into life. He recommends zooming out to a cosmic perspective, an approach called cosmic insignificance therapy, to reduce the pressure and anxiety that come with feeling overwhelmed by immediate problems. By recognizing one's small place within the vast universe, it becomes easier to prioritize and put challenges into perspective, facilitating calmer decision-making and emotional resilience. Throughout the episode, Tim insists that meaningful connections and presence represent the core of a well-lived life. He advocates for integrating practices that improve relationships daily, whether through small gestures or difficult conversations. Ultimately, living with intention, protecting time and focus, cultivating emotional intelligence, and balancing acceptance with achievement form the foundation of enduring personal fulfillment and performance.